Welcome, everybody, to Fire by Live. My name is Rebecca Spayne, and I'm the managing editor here at International Fire Buyer magazine. I'm joined here today for this exclusive big interview with Daniel Vecchiolla, Battalion Chief for the Navy Region Mid-Atlantic Fire and Emergency Services. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us. Could you just provide us a little bit of an introduction into who you are and your role as Battalion Chief?
Yeah, hey, great to be here. Thank you for having me and hosting me on this big interview. So, my name's Dan Vecchiolla. I'm Battalion Chief for Navy Region Mid-Atlantic Fire and Emergency Services out of Virginia. So, a little bit about myself. I was born in Harrison, New York, which is a small town right outside of New York City, about 45 minutes outside of New York City area. Um, I lived there for about 19 years until I joined the Navy. I did 2 tours in Iraq. I was a master at arms, something we can get into a little bit later. So I got stationed in Virginia, and that's kind of how I ended up over here. So I was stationed at Naval Station Portsmouth, the shipyard, and also Little Creek, which is in Virginia Beach, Virginia. After I got out, I did 4 years. I signed up for 4 years, and after I got out, I was working at a gym doing some personal training. Not really sure what I wanted to do, and one of my friends who was also looking for just a new career, something that we could do, talking about the fire department. And he said, "Hey, the city of Chesapeake is hiring, and they're looking for people." So, for me, it wasn't actually something that was really ever on my radar until in my mid 20s, which is not your typical firefighter answer. Usually people, when they're very young, they know they want to be a firefighter, or their father or their mother were a firefighter, so it's a legacy thing. For me, it was kind of something that I just stumbled into, and so I took the test, and after about a year and a half, I finally got the call to join the fire department. So I joined the Chesapeake Fire Department in 2011, and I was with them for about 5 years until I joined Navy Region Mid-Atlantic in 2016. So the difference that is we're on military bases, and when I was working for the city of Chesapeake, I actually didn't know that the firefighters that were on base were civilian firefighters. I always thought they were military firefighters until one of the firefighters in Chesapeake, his brother worked on the base, and he was telling me about it. And I was like, "Oh, that's very interesting." So I applied, and I got picked up by Navy Region Mid-Atlantic in 2016, and I've been with them ever since. So it's been about 7 years. Like I said, my rank is battalion chief. What I do is I basically do day-to-day operations. I oversee 6 fire stations. So we have 3 fire stations that are actually on Naval Station Norfolk. So Naval Station Norfolk is in Norfolk, Virginia. It's the largest naval base in the world. We have a station right outside of the base. It's NSA, which is an annex of Naval Station Norfolk. We also have a base, a station at the hospital in Portsmouth, and we have also another station at Northwest Annex, which is on the border of Chesapeake and North Carolina. So that is Fire District 1. That's the district that I work in, and I'm battalion chief for them.
Fantastic. And with such a rich background in firefighting, can you just describe the unique challenges that you face as a battalion chief for Navy Region Mid-Atlantic Fire and Emergency Services, given the vastness of the naval installations that you oversee?
Yeah, so each naval installation is going to be different, especially Naval Station Norfolk. Like I said earlier, it's the world's largest naval installation. So we're not just dealing with firefighting on residential or commercial buildings. We have to deal with a lot more than that. So we deal with aircraft firefighting. So that's something that we have an airfield actually at Naval Station Norfolk. So we've got E2, C2 aircraft. We have helicopters. We have large commercial aircraft that come in. We also have large military aircraft that come in. So as a challenge in itself. And besides that, you've got 14 piers that are at Naval Station Norfolk. So we've got multiple vessels that are in dock um, every single day. So we can have multiple aircraft carriers, and aircraft carriers hold up to 5,000 people on the ship itself. So the aircraft carrier basically is its own little city inside the aircraft carrier. So that's a huge challenge that we have to deal with, and we can have multiple of them on in port at the same time. So we have aircraft carriers, we have other smaller military vessels, we have submarines. Um, and another big thing that probably people don't deal with or think about too much is that some of these buildings that we go into have sensitive information. So we can't go into some of these buildings. You need a certain secret clearance or higher clearance to go in some of these buildings. So typically, as a firefighter, if you want to do a building walkthrough, you can ask the building manager and say, "Hey, can I walk through your building? I just want to get a layout, just so we kind of understand if we ever run into anything, that we have an idea how to maybe fight a fire or how much hose we need to bring into your." Big challenge on base on some of these buildings is that we don't know what's behind some of these doors. We don't know what some of the challenges is that we might face. We don't know some of the technology that they have or some of the hazards that they have behind some of these buildings. So that's something of a bit of an unknown that most people aren't really dealing with. So yeah.
Does that mean that you've got to completely overhaul the tactics that a traditional fire department might have, for example?
Yeah, yeah, you definitely do. You have to really think outside the box and just understand that you're not going to have the complete puzzle for every single call that you go on to. You're not going to know everything. We try to do our best at having the most answers, as many answers as possible going into a situation. The more answers or the more information that we can have, the better we can be, the more effective we can be while we respond to a call. Um, Knowing that we might not have as much information is information in itself, right? So, we might have to change our tactics. We might have to deal with something that we haven't dealt with. So, thinking outside the box, critical thinking, those are all certain things that we stress, and also just giving our firefighters autonomy to make decisions themselves too is something that is important to us.
So there's a lot of it must be based on instinct as well, and the knowledge of each of your individual firefighters and their careers and their experiences. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and based on your experience, how does like traditional structural firefighting, I suppose, differ on a naval installation compared to maybe your time in the city of Chesapeake?
Yeah, so they're quite different. So when I worked for the city of Chesapeake, I worked at Fire Station 1, which is in South Norfolk, which is kind of a lower income area in itself. So the population is different, the buildings are different. Um, I dealt with mostly residential and also just mercantile buildings, some commercial structures, but mostly residential. It was mostly people's one or two family style housing. Uh, so you understand that you're only having to deal with a few different things, right? So, but for being at a military installation, you're dealing with a lot more. You're dealing with the military. You're dealing with aircraft. You're dealing with naval vessels. You're dealing with hazmat. You're dealing with a bunch of different um, areas that you might not have to deal with working for the city. So there's a lot more that we have to be proficient in, that we have to keep our skills up in. Um, the cities, they have specialty fire stations. We don't have specialty fire stations for the Navy. All of our stations have to be specialty. So every single station, you have to know how to do a technical rescue. You have to know how to do hazmat. You have to be aware of, um, you know, shipboard firefighting. You have to know arc firefighting. So
Mm.
we have to really be proficient in all those skills and not just something singular.
So one size fits all. And
Yeah,
is it difficult to find or train firefighters that are proficient in all these different avenues?
it is, and it's different for, especially for me. I think, I was so used to when I worked for the city of just dealing with residential structures and making that transition going, hey, look, you have a lot more you have to deal with and a lot you don't know. So being aware of just going, all right, what don't I know? What do I need to work on? And it's a lot. It's a lot, and it takes time. And we've done a actually better job with our academy, setting people up for success when they come out. We're starting to teach our firefighting in the academy. We're starting to teach shipboard firefighting in the academy. That's something that we kind of waited till until they got onto the floor. We made that transition to start the basics and the fundamentals early with the young firefighters going into our department so that they understand, hey, look, you have a lot to know more than just the basic firefighter one and firefighter two. That's what for us.
And just to hover on that quickly as well, in terms of training to encompass all those different areas of firefighting, do you need to have, like, for example, a combined approach to training of realistic wood burning firefighting and or simulator, fog makers, all those different aspects as well?
Yeah, I think so. So, you do have to have a combination of all that kind of stuff. Like I said, just having a single focus on training one way or doing things one way isn't really going to work. So, using simulations, using live fire. We just recently actually started getting into simulation stuff, Fire Studio 7, getting that software and building out um, simulations to help our firefighters, not necessarily combat firefight because you can't really do that on a simulation, but it's more so just learning how to do a proper size up, how to critically think in certain situations by looking at the simulation, going, all right, what would you do in this situation? What would you do in this scenario? Building that repetition with thinking outside the box and using different tools.
And given the technology, like I said, is continuously evolving, are there any
Mhm.
specific technologies or tools that your department is looking to perhaps invest in or currently testing to enhance its firefighting and emergency response capabilities?
Yeah, so like I just mentioned, we just bought some firefighter software for simulations as Fire Studio 7. So we're building out simulations for stuff like that. We just recently went to our neighboring jurisdictions, our mutual aid companies. They have the software, they have built out programs, and we're seeing kind of how they run their simulation programs, what benefits they receive from it, if there are any negative aspects of using simulation. There's a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot of benefits. Like I said, you get to learn how to do a proper scene size, paint that picture for the people that are coming in. You learn how to critically think and make different decisions safely because we're not putting someone into a live fire situation. We're simulating what we're looking at, and we can, if we make a mistake during simulation, it's not a big deal. We can learn from all that kind of stuff. Besides the simulation stuff, which is something that myself and our chief of training, Chief Doherty, are building out right now, we're also looking at VR. That's something that is possibly beneficial towards us. I don't know if it would be beneficial for when looking at it, it seems like it would be a great place to start people that have never firefighted before to get just their feet wet into firefighting. You know, putting the headset on, holding the nozzle with the live feedback. If you've never done firefighting and maybe before putting someone into a live fire, you can put them into a VR, get them used to the feel and get them used to looking around at smoking conditions. I think that's a great place to start, maybe in the academy, fire academy, or right outside the fire academy. That's something that we're also looking into that might bring an extra benefit to us.
Definitely. I mean, virtual reality is something that I've seen come up a lot more bigger, come out more, a lot more popular in recent kind of last couple of years or so. And I've tried one of the firefighting virtual reality simulators for training actually, but for fire inspection. So to be able to simulate a fire inspection without having the actual burn, being able to pick up objects, examine them, be able to see, the smoke and the damage that the smoke has caused, without actually having to create a burn scenario to be able to get that is something that is actually quite interesting to be able to have that ability to make lots and lots of different scenarios that are difficult to replicate in a real life setting. So it is something that I think, like you said, in training can be, very worthwhile. You're never going to be able to simulate the same raw nature of fire and the unpredictability of fire. We can only predict fire to a certain level of what type
Right.
of fire it is and where it might go. But in terms of actually, things like wildfires, for example, they are unpredictable. So it's I definitely think a combination approach of multiple different types of training is something that is incredibly beneficial to all firefighters, no matter what the specialism.
Yeah, and what's good about the simulation and the VR stuff is that you can tailor it exactly how you want it to be. Like you said, during a live fire, you can only tailor it so much because you can't control exactly every aspect of a live fire. But in a simulation in VR, if you want to put a fire in a certain area and let it grow to a certain, degree, you can actually do that kind of stuff. In a simulation, if you want to put a fire on the Delta corner out of a window, well, we can do that, and we can change the smoke of it. We can change the size of it and the scope of it. It's hard to do that in live situations, but for simulations and VR, that's definitely an added benefit. We can make it exactly how we want it.
And I suppose also the kind of the obvious benefit as well is minimizing that risk to firefighter health. I mean, the amount of fires, carcinogens, toxins that you already encounter on a day to day um, role as a firefighter. Just to minimize it in some aspects, even in training, is a benefit, and that's a huge aspect of it as well. And as someone who's quite deeply involved in more of the organizational and the management leadership kind of side of firefighting, what do you think of some of the main trends that you foresee shaping the future of the firefighting industry, especially obviously within the Navy context?
Yeah, so that's something that I'm going to school for now. It's something that's pretty important to me. Um, what I would like to see, some trends, would be to focus more on the principles of leadership and management early on as possible. So having new recruit firefighters or new company officers, learning leadership, the general principles of leadership skills. That's not something that I don't think we're doing a great job at. We're really focusing on their firefighter skills, which is clearly very important for our job, obviously. However, if we're only going 10%, so if we do a 24-hour or 48-hour shift and we're only on, 20% of that time, we're actually on an emergency call. 80% of the time, we're in the firehouse. We're talking to each other. We're dealing with each other. We have to influence each other. We have to deal with conflict management. If we're not focusing on our leadership skills or conflict management skills or how to manage people, I think we're doing a disservice. So that's something that I really would like to see, uh, put leadership, personnel, dealing with people at the forefront of this kind of stuff. So I think that's a part of it. I think also just understanding that leadership and conflict management is a skill. So it's something that needs to be worked on. It's not something we do have, obviously, people that have an innate ability to influence and lead people, but not every single leader is born. And realizing that people can, it's a learned skill and it's also a perishable skill too. So leadership's super important. And I think the last thing that really should be focusing on is creating effective teams. As firefighters, we are a cohesive unit. We are not individuals. We never go into a burning building by ourselves. We never run the fire ground by ourselves. So really focusing on how do we maximize our teams.
Mm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense for obviously firefighters and the fire service. In terms of the fire prevention side of it, obviously fire prevention branches are really crucial in fire services. Can you shed a little bit of light on the primary fire safety challenges that you encounter on naval installations and how your team can proactively address them?
Yeah, so some of the challenges that we face, well, first off, we've got a great fire prevention bureau in Fire District 1. Chief Evans runs a great department, and he has 8 inspectors that are part of his team and personnel. So we do have we're fully staffed, which is amazing. One of the issues that we're running into in the prevention department is not so much our department, but it is getting the funding for just general maintenance on some of the fire prevention systems, you know? So a lack of funding is a huge thing, and making sure it's a priority for the building managers to understand that it's important for them to keep up with their systems. So that's the first line of defense. You know, as firefighters, we're the last line of defense for any kind of fire. So what we want to do is really um, make sure that our buildings are up to date. So we do have certain codes that we check, um, but the systems are our backup, you know. And if the systems are going down, the systems are outdated, and or the systems aren't being kept up because of just lack of funding or they don't think it's important, that's a huge challenge that we're really running into. So it's kind of an uphill battle running into stuff like that. And we do a great job, I think, at doing building walkthroughs. So besides fire prevention, doing their own inspections, we have our personnel who do building walkthroughs just to get a general layout of the building. And they can also check, see if there's any kind of issues. It's kind of like a double check, really. We also do hangar mitigations every single month. We go to the hangars where they have aircraft in the hangars. We make sure that the system's working. We make sure that nothing seems out of place. You know, it's just a double check, triple check on certain things because, you know, the last thing that we want is an issue actually happening. Yes, we're firefighters, and it is our job to fight fires. But like I said, that is a last line of defense. And if we can make our defenses um, earlier and make sure that we're being proactive about them, that's less of a chance that we have any kind of injury. We have building burning up, and that's the last thing we want to see.
And I suppose as well, make doing these checks not only makes sure that things are up to code and everything, but it also helps mitigate false alarms. I mean, like you said, if you've got an airplane hangar and that's got a suppression system that is or retardant system, whatever, that if that a false alarm goes off and you know that falls into action, that is a huge, not just financial burden, but you know the effort of all of that coming together. So to make sure that we mitigate all of those as well is quite big as well.
Yeah, and that's something that we're running into is we get a lot of just false alarms or false calls. A lot of these systems that are old, where we'll get a trouble alarm or supervisory alarm or fire alarm, and then we get there, and when you read the panel, it's an all clear. So some of that stuff is we're kind of used to that. We I try to look at it as a positive way. Is all right. So we went out there. That's fine. We got called out there. Well, let's do the building walkthrough while we're out there. Let's do a quick little inspection while we're out there. We're already out here already. Why not make the best of it? So if we can look at it kind of a silver lining on certain that stuff, then it's not so bad.
That's actually a really good way of looking at it, and it gives you the added benefit, like I said, of making sure that those checks are correct, and making sure that it's up to code and best practice is being followed. Just those little things, like you said, when it comes down to funding or anything like that, that makes it difficult to keep on top of. Just that added extra reassurance can really benefit. And just lastly, with your department responsible also for hazardous materials response, that you said, you know, you might not understand what kind of materials are inside a building that you might encounter. So it might be that it's hazmat, and also the technical rescue side of things as well. Could you discuss any recent challenges or case studies, for example, that required like a unique solution or a collaboration of your team?
You know, luckily for us, we've got a really good relationship with our mutual aid departments outside of the base. So recently we had a tabletop drill with the city of Norfolk, which is literally outside of our gate. We had a tabletop drill with an aircraft running off the runway and going into the adjacent highway right next to it with a large spill and heavy traffic. So this is something that is a possibility. Obviously, it's a very rare circumstance that something like this would happen, but it's a possibility. So what we like to do is train for something that is, a worst case scenario. So we did that. We had multiple Battalion Chiefs. We had a training captain. We've had people from dispatch. We had people from air operations. We had all of our firefighters come in, do a tabletop drill, figure out a way. All right, hey, if we had this situation, what would we do? What would my role be as a battalion chief dealing with it on base, and what was your role as battalion chief dealing with it on the highway or off base with your personnel? So really coming up with a game plan, having a unified command, and not just with the department, but with security, with the police department, understanding those kind of roles. So we have a good relationship with them when it comes to any kind of technical rescue stuff. If we have an issue or we think that we might need them, we can call them onto base. Our hazmat response, we've got Norfolk has a hazmat response. We have the city of Chesapeake has a hazmat unit. We have a hazmat unit that's that we can use as well too. So we know the tools in our toolbox, and we try to train with everyone else that would probably be involved in a large scale incident. So that's something that is important to us to be proactive about it, to reach out to other departments, because we don't have all the answers, and not the department next to us doesn't have all the answers. But if we work together, we can come up with a solution on a lot of different things.
And finally, obviously, the fire industry and fire challenges, I suppose, is continuously evolving. At the moment, we're seeing electric vehicle fires, becoming quite a big deal to deal with. We're getting new technology in the area to combat this, and also we're getting new electric firefighting vehicles. On the other hand, we're also seeing, unprecedented amounts of wildfires. Is there anything in particular that you're seeing that you want to start preparing for over the next decade of where the future of firefighting is heading?
Yeah, I think the electrical, cars, the apparatus, the batteries. Those are big ones that are running into quite often. We had a scooter that smoked up on base not too long ago. So some stuff like that is definitely a big issue. Technology is a big issue. I think, a big challenge, not so much technology wise, I think for at least for firefighter or fire departments as a whole in the United States is short staffing. That's something that we're kind of running into. I was just looking at the numbers a few days ago. NFPA puts out a fire department profile of the U.S. every single year. Most recent one, it's a few years old. It's for 2020. It should be coming up with a new one in September for 2021. But we're almost at the lowest level of firefighters we've had in 30 years. So I think in 1989, it was like 1,020,000 firefighters was the lowest in 30 years. At the height in 2015, we had, I think, 1,160,000. So currently in 2020, it was 1,041,000 firefighters. So we're about 10% decrease from 2015, and almost at a 30-year low from 1989. I bet the numbers are probably even lower due to COVID during 2020 and 2021. I'd love to see what those numbers look like. So I know personally for us and other departments in our area, it's a big staffing problem, getting people to join the fire department. I don't know how it is overseas. I'm not sure, but for us, I know we have to be able to change our recruitment style, and people are not as interested in the fire department as they used to be. And I think the younger generation could be interested if we actually geared it towards them. So possibly talking about education, bringing people in, say, hey, look, if you come in with us, we can help you get a college degree. Instead of going to college first, maybe we help you get a college degree. Um, Building out our training with new technology, with VR, with simulations, instead of an old school mentality, using new technology, right? So maybe we uh, are using different technology, use YouTube, use different platforms to get different candidates involved in us. And I think that's for us, that's a huge issue. And having low staffing is a cascading problem. You know, you can't staff the trucks with that, and that leads to just people being overworked and overstressed. So luckily for us, that's something that we've addressed and we're working on right now. So we're starting to hire as many people as possible. We've taken over our hiring, and that's something that we're working on now. So that's a big challenge I see. I think for the U.S. departments as a whole, in general, is making sure that we can meet the mission and getting people involved again, excited about firefighting again. I think that's something that I want to do.
Mm. And I mean, that's quite interesting. I mean, I haven't seen the report, but it's quite interesting for me because when I picture, particularly in the States, obviously your setup's completely different. You have a lot of volunteer fire brigades as well.
Mhm.
And like you said, more specialist different units that cater to structural or ARF or whatever. And it seems very much like a culture, like a family culture out there. Like I said earlier to you, when we went to FDIC, you know, all the firefighters bring, they have a family day and they have everything like that, and it's very much a legacy. Whereas I feel like, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a firefighter, but over here, we're having an issue recruitment, not just in firefighting, but also in the passive fire. How do we make these industries like fire, like security, like engineering more appealing? These STEM subjects more appealing to young people in schools. And I feel like fire and security both have a taboo reputation of what everyone perceives a firefighter to be, or what everyone perceives a security officer to be. And I think that's where we need to inherently change that reputation and start catering, like you said, to these new generations coming in. It was really great to hear that you're actually combating these challenges now already. And I know a lot of other people are as well. So hopefully, you know, group effort, everyone can kind of come together and we can change these figures.
Yeah, it's you know, we still have that. We still have that tradition. We still have that mentality ingrained in us now. It's just, I think, just the younger generation isn't aware of that, you know, and they value things differently than past generations. So they think we have to transition. Yeah, you know, we like tradition. Fire department, you know, doesn't like to change. It's hard for us to want to change, especially with our traditions. I mean, we talk about our helmets, right? We were talking about that earlier before we started the interview. But at a certain time, we have to get with the times, and we have to go. All right, what are these younger generations? What are they like? How do we entice them? What do they want? Doesn't mean we have to change our standards, but we have to change how we do something, how we recruit people. And I think that's a big thing for us because low staffing leads to not being able to meet the mission, leads to firefighter burnout, leads to mental health stress, leads to PTSD, leads to sleep issues, leads to a cascading problem of different issues. And it really does start with getting people on the job. And if we can't get people on the job, the people that are on the job are suffering the most because of that.
No, definitely. I couldn't agree more. Well, I think we've reached the end of the interview, but thank you so much, Daniel. I really appreciate the time that you spent here talking to us, giving us a little bit of further insight into how you guys operate, but also into the wider challenges and trends that are happening in the fire industry right now. So thank you. And if anybody has any further questions, you can reach out directly to Daniel on the platform and connect and get talking. Thank you.